Question. Why does any of this have to take so long? If this place doesn't even exist, why does it take so long? Depak Chopra wrote a book called something like Quantum Healing. He said it doesn't have to take a long time, it can be instant. Why can't I instantly heal so that I can live a connected life? Well, if you watch my video about how the world was created and some of my other videos, what I talk about in there is we are created, designed to be co-creators. And we co-create by using our minds. And this means, in our situation here on Earth, our minds have 4 levels. Talk about that in several videos. The identity, the mental, the emotional, and the purely physical. And I also talk about how we were originally created in a state of connected beings, as the person says. Why can't I instantly heal so that I can live a connected life? Well, we were originally designed or created in that state of connectedness, some sense of connection. We were meant to expand it. But we also have free will, and one aspect of free will is we can, instead of seeing ourselves as connected beings, we can go into the illusion that we are separate beings. And we are allowed to do this. It's part of our past that we at least experiment with this duality consciousness and come to a point where we voluntarily give it up. But what I've also said is that the moment you go into duality, it's like you're standing in front of a maze. And you're going into the maze, and then you come to a point where you have 2 options. You can go this way or that way. You choose to go one way. Then again, you can choose one or the other way. You choose this way. So you are tracing your own path into the maze. In reality, you're really creating the maze in your own mind, but nevertheless, to illustrate it, you're going into this maze. And for each time you take a turn in the maze, you are making a decision. That decision is based on an illusion because you're in duality where all you can see is illusions. And that creates a separate self, a subconscious self. Nothing wrong with this. This is part of what we can do with our free will. But the consequence is that for each time you create a separate self, it limits how you see yourself, how you think, how you feel. It creates another layer of structure in these 3 levels of the mind: identity, mental, emotional. And most people have gone quite deeply into their personal maze and made a lot of different decisions. And the only way, now listen to me, this is allowed by free will, we are allowed to do this. But when we go into separation, the Ascended Masters can't help us. So we become, in a sense, our own teachers. We enter the school of hard knocks. So we are allowed to go into the maze and take all these twists and turns. Because by doing this, we can learn, we can grow. I Am Presence can grow. But there are 2 aspects of this learning process. That is, we go into the maze and we go out of the maze. And we only learn fully by going out of the maze. Now, when we go into the maze, we're not fully conscious of what the choices mean and the illusion we're basing it on, because you think the illusion is reality. But in order to go out of the maze, we have come to see the illusion consciously and dismiss it. And that's how we have the full learning experience. So, why does any of this have to take so long? Because you have taken so many twists and turns, and the only way to get back to a connected life is to retrace your steps and undo each of those subconscious selves, each of these illusions, one at a time, and do it consciously. That is the process. If this place doesn't even exist, why does it take so long? Well, it does exist. The earth does exist. The earth is real. You can say that the illusions you have created in your own mind are not real. That's true. But you won't learn that until you come to see them as illusions consciously. So, why does it take so long? Because you haven't yet been willing to look for these illusions and see how they're holding you back. You're the one who decides. how long you went into the maze before you said you'd had enough and you started your way back. You're the one who decides how long it's going to take to go back by being willing to look at your illusions one at a time. If you are thinking that you can find some teacher who has some magical trick so you can jump out of the maze in one quantum leap, by all means pursue that illusion, because that's another experience you can have in duality. But it's not going to get you out of the maze. I don't care what Depak Chopra or anybody else says. Any number of spiritual teachers have promoted this instant healing or instant change, instant results, instant awakening. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in rare cases, but that's because people in past lives, or without being aware of it, they have come to see a number of illusions until they could have a bigger breakthrough. But even those people who talk about instant awakening, they still find that after some time they have unresolved psychology that comes up. Some of them are not willing to admit it, but some of them are. So, I'm not saying that you can't have big breakthroughs by shifting your mind, but I'm saying you are not going to get out of the maze in one big breakthrough. So, basically I would say, many people, when they find a spiritual path, myself included, we are hoping for this instant breakthrough. Some big decisive event, and suddenly we are awakened or enlightened. It is, you can take two approaches. You can wait for this to happen, or you can try to find this magical way to make it happen, or that magical way to make it happen. Or you can put your nose to the grindstone and look at your psychology and dissolve one subconscious self at a time. And in my experience, the second approach will guarantee your results. The first approach, there's no guarantee. I mean, I understand this book. I actually read this book about quantum healing by Depak Chopra. And I'm not saying it doesn't apply somewhat to healing, because there are certain psychosomatic diseases that can be healed by shifting consciousness. But that's not the same as psychology. But what I wanted to say was, as far as I remember, I read this book back in the 1990s. It's been out there for a long time, right? So if millions of people had been able to read this book and have an instant healing, it probably would have been more famous than it is. The same thing, you can look back and say, any number of people have entered a spiritual movement or followed a spiritual teacher who promised them instant results. Have they gotten those results? In my observation, most of them haven't. So it's just a matter of what do you want to do. You want to pursue a dream, then you go find some other spiritual teacher that will promise you that instant result. Or you can listen to what I'm saying based on my 48 years of personal experience and say, here's a valid path. It takes time, it takes work, but it will produce results. It doesn't mean you have to wait a long time necessarily to have some important breakthroughs. I mean, I had important breakthroughs almost from the beginning when I found the path when I was 18. But I'm just saying, it is a lifelong process, because there's always more psychology to resolve as long as you're on Earth, and there's always more insights to gain. But I will say that, why can't I instantly heal so that I can live a connected life? This you can achieve relatively quickly, but it requires you to be willing to look at your psychology and what is it that makes you feel that you're not connected. And I talk about this in a number of my videos. I would recommend looking through my breakthrough videos where I talk about the spiritual path and the biggest secret on the spiritual path, or overcoming the focus on self. I would also recommend my playlist on avatar psychology. I also talk about how you can shift your view of why you came to Earth and why you're here. And then perhaps even my non-duality videos can also help you gain a perspective on this.